Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 5. So just quickly, before I get into my review for this episode, you probably noticed if you've seen some of my other reviews for this show or just other videos on the channel, that this looks a lot different than usual. So I'm trying a new setup here. I've been, trying to get this green screen behind me working, but I haven't been able to do, I have been able to get it working, just, it's just, really tough to render out then as well with the green screen. So I just have run into a lot of difficulties with it, and it's not perfect, right? So you can still see a little bit of the difference and stuff. So I'm still working on that. So bear with me here. For now, we'll just have to imagine something there's behind me. But anyways, it's not a bad background though, to be honest. It definitely could be worse. At least it's kind of, in the background, and it's just one solid color. It's not too distracting or anything like that. So anyways, yeah, bear with me on that one, but I'm trying to get that working. So hopefully then I can have, a working green screen. I can have some, pictures behind me. And when I'm doing these reviews, the things I'm talking about can hopefully be behind me. So, that's the goal. But, hopefully I'll in the next couple weeks, I'll be able to do, to get that. So anyways, Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 5. It is called Quite a Ride, and this one was quite a ride, honestly. I really do think the title was correct on this one. With a little bit of a slower paced episode, I would say, compared to last week. Last week we had a little bit of action there with Nacho and the twins. That was, pretty big action for a show like this, at least so far this season. So a little bit of a slower paced episode, but I did really enjoy it. I still think that episode 2 and 3 are better than this one, but, this one was definitely good. Episode 4 was good too, so, and that's not to knock on this episode or episode 1, really. I mean, those are, they're both great episodes, but, anyway, so we'll go through a little bit of a recap here and then get to my rating of the episode, my favorite character, and some more overall thoughts of the episode, and we're at the halfway mark for this season. It's crazy. I honestly can't believe that we're already at the halfway mark. 5 weeks have already passed, so pretty crazy stuff, and that also explains why we get this amazing scene at the beginning of the episode. I feel like they were like, okay, well, we're halfway through the season, we got to give them something, right? And so they give us this, so pretty awesome stuff. So anyways, let's dive into the recap here. Let me know what you thought of this episode and what you're thinking of the season so far. What do you think of the first half of season 4? Are you loving it? I've seen some people, saying that they're bored with it, it's going too slow. But I'm sorry to tell you, that's just Better Call Saul. This is not anything new this season, and the pacing. So that is what it is. That's the show, and I still think it's probably the best show on television right now. Not in terms of popularity, but in terms of actually just quality. Judging by quality and writing and all that stuff. I think it's the best show on television. So, anyway, so we start off this episode. We see a flash forward / flashback. It depends on what you think of the series, but yeah. So a flash forward in terms of Better Call Saul, but a flash forward in terms of Better Call Saul, but kind of a flashback in terms of Breaking Bad, right? So it was really great. So we see the scene of Saul getting everything together, right, in his office there, from when he was Saul Goodman, right? So he's getting everything together to leave Albuquerque, right, and assume a new identity, as Walter has just been caught and now kind of outed, right? I think, when Hank dies, right, it kind of goes, globally, or not globally, but at least now, nationally, and it's huge news, right? So, and of course, Saul Goodman is involved with him. Now, I'm not sure. I mean, I think Saul's going to, huge lengths, shredding all these documents and everything like that. When I don't, he's done some, shady things. He's definitely a criminal. But he's definitely not at the same level as Walter is or anything like that. So, maybe he's blowing things out of proportion a little bit anyways. But that's Saul totally, right? So Walter's just been caught and outed. So he's tearing his office apart, right? Getting everything together so that he can leave. He takes all the money from out of the I think it was the ceiling tile. He took it out, and then he broke a hole in the wall and took out this cardboard box. And we didn't see what was in it quite yet, so I'm sure we might see that in the next little scene that they give us of this. But anyways, So he gets everything together. Then he says goodbye to Francesca. Of course, she was kind of a funny character, right, in Breaking Bad. So it was good to see her again. So he says goodbye to her and calls the man about the vacuum. I don't remember his name. I'm not sure if we did get his name in Breaking Bad, but he's the guy who basically makes people disappear, right? And so anyways, he calls for the vacuum, kind of uses the code word or whatever, so he knows, right? And calls him. And he knows as well, he states in Breaking Bad too, that he says, once you call him, you can't go back, right? Like once you make the call, you have to go with him. That's it. It's a one-time thing. And so we see just before he dials, like right before he, presses to call him, he just thinks about it for a second. He hesitates a little bit and he says, in his mind, is this what I really want to do? There's no going back. And he does it. So, anyways, I did not expect to see a scene like this in Better Call Saul anytime soon. I thought this was like end of season 4, season 5 area maybe. But this was awesome. It was awesome stuff to get a scene like this. And of course, this got everybody, kind of going this week, or at least, Tuesday, Wednesday after the episode, talking about what the possibilities of this are, why we saw a scene like this now, and all that stuff. So really awesome stuff, though. I really did enjoy the scene. It was great to see. So, and it wasn't something that, we totally haven't seen. I mean, this is something that we probably could have imagined happening, right? Because we were there at that timeline in Breaking Bad, but still a very good scene to start off the episode with. So in the way that they're doing it, they're showing us Gene at the very beginning of each season, right? So that's even past Breaking Bad, and now we're kind of going a little bit farther back to, kind of post Breaking Bad, but just before Gene, right? And so they're piecing all these timelines together, and it's really coming together well. Then we come back current times, of course, and Jimmy finally gets his first customer at CC Mobile, and he works his magic on him, right? Sells the whole privacy thing, and that's what he's, trying to spin to get customers in there. So he basically, hoodwinks this guy into buying all these phones from him. So he makes a pretty good buck on them, and that's just great to see. The classic Jimmy, right? I said I wouldn't have been surprised if all of a sudden we got kind of a montage or a scene here with a bunch of customers in there and Jimmy working his magic selling to them. And I was half right? It wasn't a huge crowd, but it was just one guy, and he was able to sell him the phone. So, anyways, that was kind of a funny little scene there for Jimmy. And then we see a mystery man shows up from the Denver airport, right? And so, again, this is the way the Better Call Saul works. They show us, a glimpse of what's happening, right? They show us this random guy that we've never seen before getting off this shuttle, right? And he goes to find this car, right? And so we have no idea what's going on. And then Mike calls, and then everything kind of pieces together. So Better Call Saul does this all the time with stuff, and it's really, really entertaining. Keeps you on your toes a little bit, too. Really interesting. So anyway, so this guy finds this rental car, he gets the keys from under the wheel well, and then gets a call from Mike, who is instructing him on what to do. So then we see the man gets in the car, he drives, so he stops on the side of the road at this certain mile point, kind of funny, and puts a hood on. Mike tells him to put a hood on, and he stands beside his car waiting for Mike to arrive in the van, right? Just kind of a funny little, glimpse there, right? Like, it's just this grown man wearing a hood with a suitcase just standing on the side of the road. Pretty funny. So, anyways, he then rides with Mike in the back of the van to their destination. And again, a little bit of a funny moment here. They're hitting all these bumps and everything, and he's got this hood on, right? So he can't see, he has no idea what's going on. And Mike's, there's a strap beside you to hold on to or whatever, and he's trying to reach for the strap. So, anyways, just kind of a funny scene there. And so then we find out what basically it is all for. So Mike brings him to the laundromat, right? So this was awesome. We see things that are getting in motion here, and Gus is starting to build this laundromat lab, right? This underground lab that, of course, we know Walter and Jesse cooked in, along with Gale, in Breaking Bad. So really great stuff, right? So breaks the laundromat, takes his hood off, right? And so they're basically asking him to build the secret entrance to this lab downstairs, right? So they're trying to find a guy who can do it for them. And they also have to be really secretive about it too, right? Because they can't have they can't have any activity from above ground pretty much, right? Because then that would be suspicious, and that would, like people could find out, and the police could get involved and whatever, and they don't want that, of course. So anyways, so this guy says he can get it done in 6 to 7 months, and says he's known for building tunnels from Mexico to El Paso, and he's, totally undetected. He's done it before, and all this stuff. And so anyway, he's basically selling, right? He's selling himself to them and saying all this stuff that he can do it. And then Mike gets a call from somebody, right? And he, says, yeah, okay, yeah, and then hangs up, and then abruptly, he just thanks him for this time, right? And ends the visit with him. And that's about it, right? So then this guy has to go back to his car at the side of the road, and he leaves him with some paper in his pocket there. And we don't know exactly what it is. It says "Welcome Abroad" on the little, brochure, I guess it was, or pamphlet. And so anyway, so I don't think that he got the job. I think this other guy is going to get the job that we see later on in the episode, but just kind of an interesting little sequence here in the episode. Again, slow paced, right? They're kind of building things up a little bit. But anyway, so yeah, some cool stuff there. So then we see Kim takes on a young man as a new client. So this actually makes sense. So this makes what we saw last episode make sense. It all brings it to full circle. And I had no doubt that Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould would do this. I shouldn't say, because they don't write every episode. I'm sorry. So the writers, they did it. So they were able to bring it back. Anyways. So this is because she pressured the judge, right, last episode, to give her these new clients, right, these kind of pro bono cases, I guess. And so she pressured the judge into giving them, and now she's actually working them. So this is, I'm guessing, her first, like, pro bono case here with this young man, who, he threw, like, a cinder block or something through a window. Something like that, like pretty crazy. Anyways, and so she's able to work her magic, right? Jimmy's working his magic, but she also is working hers in this episode. And she wins a plea deal for him against another lawyer that we've seen before from when Jimmy was in court. So he kind of just seems like the local, local guy who, just trying to do, his best. And Jimmy and Kim are kind of besting him here and getting the best of him. But anyways, so she wins this plea deal, and we just see how good of a lawyer she is, but also how, smart she is. And she's able to work things out and kind of, get people's secrets, right? She figures it out pretty quick. So that was great. We're all connected. So then we see Jimmy goes back to work in the night, goes back to CC Mobile, and begins ringing in a bunch of fake sales on the register, right? And so we don't totally understand what's going on at first. And then after he's done, he puts his own money into the till, I guess to make it look believable, right? For all these sales that he's just done, he has to put the money in. So he puts all the money in, to make it believable, and now he must get rid of some of the phones, right? I mean, if he's doing all these sales for all these phones, you can't still have the inventory there, right? So he has to get rid of all these phones. So he goes to the spa and gets a jumpsuit outfit to fit in a little bit more with the people he's selling to, right? And this is something Jimmy is great at. He's able to read a crowd and understand what he has to make himself into to kind of fit in and sell to these people. And again, just a great example of that this week, of course. And so, yeah, so he's putting on this jumpsuit, and then this music starts playing, gets you in a little bit of the vibe there. It was just kind of a funny little thing there. Music starts playing, and he's walking down the sidewalk, just kind of a little funny sequence there. So he begins a huge selling spree, essentially. So he's actually, he gets a lot of success, right? A lot of people are buying these phones, and it makes sense, though, for the type of phone that he's selling, right? It's a pay-as-you-go or something, so it's kind of a temporary thing that can't be monitored, and these people are kind of, not the greatest, upstanding citizens, right? And so they're going to want these phones. So Jimmy knows exactly who he's catering to and what he's doing right here, and he's able to have a lot of success for it. He's able to sell a lot of phones. So he sells almost all these phones. He has, I think, 4 or 5 left, right? So everything's going well until all of a sudden this motorcycle group arrives at this doghouse or whatever, this restaurant that he's kind of outside of selling all these phones at. And so Jimmy decides to take advantage of it, even though these motorcycle guys are kind of intimidating. He goes over anyways, gets his remaining phones that are still in his trunk. He goes over and, of course, right, he succeeds, and they buy the rest of the phones off of him. So you knew he was going to, right? You knew he was going to succeed there, and Jimmy's able to work his magic again in this one and sell all of those phones off. So everything's going well here. He even sells to this motorcycle group. He's going back to his car with the money, and something happens, right? So he's going back to his car with the money, and the three boys he met before in the episode, a few minutes earlier, that he saw on the street corner there, they catch up and jump him. So, and he totally underestimates them too, right? He's like, well, I gotta go home now. So, you guys just leave, right? And they actually jump him and they beat him up. Actually, they, pretty much kick the shit out of him right on the ground and take his money. So, they mug him, right? They mug him. So, really, kind of tough to watch, right? Because, again, Jimmy is able to be really successful. Everything's going his way, and then, boom, something happens, and it doesn't. So, it's just a perfect representation of Jimmy's life, essentially, in this, story again. And we keep seeing these things over and over and over again in this show, right? So, everything's kind of going his way until the very end. Right? So something always has to happen to ruin his plans or his aspirations here. Pretty much every time in everything he does. It's kind of disappointing to watch, but you also feel for Jimmy too. Because of the way this, just constantly happens to him. So anyways, kind of a disappointing scene. And those kids, they come and mug him for the money. And I'm not sure if they took all of his money, though, because I think he put some of I may have missed it, but I think he put some of the money in his car before he went back out to sell to those motorcycle guys. So I could be wrong. Maybe it was still all in his pocket, but it seems as though they took all of his money. So will that have, some ramifications for the CC Mobile? Will he be out money now? I'm not sure. I think that what he was doing there is all that money that he made that night, it was profit. I think all the other money that he put into the register and all those fake sales, that was already taken care of. So anyways, it is what it is. So then Jimmy returns home. He actually wakes up Kim. So Kim kind of gets out of bed, comes over, and she's like, what happened? Right? What happened? You okay? And he's like, I got mugged, right? So frank about it. Just kind of a funny little response there for Jimmy. I got mugged, right? Just kind of a funny thing there. He's being honest with her, right? And he's not always honest. So then we see that Jimmy, he says he's, disappointed in himself for letting his guard down, right? And not recognizing these kids, right? And I really like this little line here that he says, and he says, him not recognizing these kids was disappointing to him because he used to be one of those kids, right, in the past, and that's where we got Slippin' Jimmy, right? Those little flashbacks there from season 1 and 2. He was one of those kids who would do that. Now, maybe not mug a guy, but do little sketchy things kind of to get money, right? And so that's what he did, and he's just disappointed in himself that he couldn't recognize that. And I really did like that line, though. I like when they kind of revisit things in the past. So that was a nice little moment, and also a nice moment between Jimmy and Kim. But again, he also lies to her and says he's going to go see the shrink when he really has no intentions of doing so. So anyways, then we see Kim visits another new client. It's a young girl this time. So again, same type of thing, pro bono again, as she's trying to help this girl. And we don't know the reason yet, but it seems like a new pattern for Kim, right? She's, first this young guy, now this young girl. Is she going to keep doing this, right? So we don't really know exactly why she's doing it, but it seems as though it's a pattern starting, right? And so while she's getting the girl ready to go to her hearing at her house there, she gets a call from her paralegal. I can't remember her paralegal's name. But anyways, her paralegal, she gets a call, right, regarding a file for Mesa Verde. So on the phone, her paralegal seems very anxious, right? She needs Kim's help. There's a mistake on this file for some reason, right? And that's not a huge surprise because Kim's still trying to get back into the swing of things, I think, at work. So not totally surprising that she would make a mistake or something like that. But she actually ends up deciding to prioritize the hearing for this this young woman. I'm not sure how old she is. Is she like maybe 18 or 19? I don't know. Maybe she's like young, early 20s. I'm not exactly sure how old she was. But anyways, so she decides to prioritize this hearing for this woman over the Mesa Verde issue. what? Like, that's not Kim. That's not the Kim we know from previous seasons. Why is her dedication kind of faltering here? So very interesting little thing there that she makes that decision, and she's actually kind of mean to her paralegal and says, no, I'm not coming in. Like, I got other things to do. So very interesting there. Then she actually goes back to Mesa Verde a little bit later to apologize pretty much for what had happened after her hearing, right? So she goes to the hearing, gets everything done, and then she does Mesa Verde, which is totally opposite, right, from the Kim we know and what she should be doing, right? So the Mesa Verde woman, Paige, I believe is her name, tells you that they need her to be available, right? They need her to work for them, right? Like, they are her priority, that they should be her sole focus, right? So she shouldn't be off doing, now, Paige doesn't know she's doing these pro bonos or whatever, but she shouldn't be off doing these pro bonos, right? Is essentially what Paige is telling her, without telling her that, right? And so Kim says it won't happen again, and she actually seems very remorseful about it. But is she telling the truth? I don't know. I mean, this is, there's a lot of stuff about Kim in this episode that's kind of mysterious. Why is she doing these pro bonos all of a sudden? Why is she prioritizing them over Mesa Verde? I think this does go along with the scene, I believe it was in episode 3, where she gets invited by Kevin there into that room, that expansion with all the models that are built in there. And she gets very... I don't even know how to describe it really, but she gets really nervous and really kind of anxious about it all of a sudden. And so I think this has to do with that. Is she kind of, going away from Mesa Verde, right? Maybe she doesn't even want to be involved with them anymore if they're going to be growing. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Kim, and I don't know if it will happen again or it won't happen again. I don't know. But anyways, definitely, a big thing, big shift for Kim in this episode. Then we see Mike brings another man to check out the laundromat, and this guy seems very fluttered, right, at what a tall task it is, but says it's not impossible, right? It's not impossible. He could do it, but it's going to be very, very difficult to do, especially with being secretive, right, with not, letting anyone else know that this is happening, right? And so then all of a sudden, he's talking to Mike and everything, and then Gus shows up, right? Gus just kind of comes out of nowhere and actually meets with him, shakes his hand, right, and says, I'm Gus, or introduces himself. So very interesting stuff. I think that means that they're choosing that guy to do the job. I think he got it, because I don't know why Gus would introduce himself and show his face to a guy that they're not going to work with, right? So I think that means that he got the job and that he's going to be the one responsible in building this secret lab underground. He also seemed a little bit more responsible than the other guy. The other guy took like a couple like clicks on his camera or something, and all of a sudden, he had all the schematics. So it just seemed like this guy did a little bit more, research and everything, and I guess they liked him. So we'll have to see. Maybe construction will get underway in the next couple episodes, and we'll get to see this lab being built, which would be pretty cool, right? Because we know Walter and Jesse were in the lab in Breaking Bad, and that would be really cool to see it being built. That would just be pretty interesting. So anyways, so that's just about the end of Mike and Gus in this one as well. So then Jimmy is at the courthouse, and this was maybe my favorite scene of the episode, our most meaningful scene of the episode. He runs into Howard in the washroom, right? And this was very interesting scene. It was like kind of all of a sudden, but again, you kind of think like there's probably only one courthouse in the area that they're in, so it's not that surprising that they're both lawyers practicing. So, well, Jimmy's not a lawyer practicing, but Howard is. So it's not a huge surprise that they would see each other. Anyways, and so Howard is having somewhat of a breakdown in the washroom, like a nervous breakdown kind of, and kind of trying to splash his face with some water and stuff like that. So Jimmy asks what is eating him, right? So obviously it's a problem. At first I think he asks, oh, it's a big case or whatever. And Howard's like, no, not particularly, right? Like, it's not the case, right? And so Jimmy asks what's eating him, why is he not sleeping well? Howard, talking about insomnia and how he hasn't slept, much at all lately. And so, I mean, this was just a really meaningful scene, a really significant scene, and Howard, tells him that he's shared enough, right? He's told him enough about what has happened with Chuck, so that's what it is. It basically confirms, he didn't say it, but he does say, I've already shared enough with you, Jimmy, or whatever, and just kind of walks out, right? And so I think this does confirm, though, that it is the guilt he feels for Chuck, and he still feels like he was the one who killed him. And so, very, very sad. And of course, this is because Jimmy said, well, Howard, I guess that's your cross to bear in the premiere episode. So, and I think it is genuine. I don't think Howard's faking this in this scene. I think it is very genuine. I think Howard is still feeling extremely guilty for what happened. And now Jimmy has basically pushed all of this guilt onto him, even though Howard is not to blame. Jimmy is to blame. He's the one who started that whole thing with the insurance thing, but Howard thinks it's his fault. So, and Jimmy is perfectly fine. We see in the scene, he is not remorseful at all for Howard. He's perfectly fine with Howard feeling that guilt so that he doesn't, so he's kind of distributing that guilt onto someone else in Howard, and he seems like he's perfectly fine with it. So, just kind of showing, I think that's the more important part of the scene, is that Jimmy is not, he doesn't really care. I mean, in this scene, he doesn't really care for Howard. He maybe even enjoys it. I would even go as far as saying that he enjoys seeing Howard kind of broken down for this guilt. Maybe not that far, but, possibly, right? So, anyways, that was a very meaningful scene in the episode. And Howard's journey, I mean, we haven't seen him in the last 2 episodes, and this makes sense, right? So this is going to be a tough season for Howard for sure, especially if it is genuine and he's actually, feeling this way, which I think he is. So then we get to the very end of the episode here, still at the courtroom. Jimmy attends his PPD meeting, and I'm not exactly sure what this is. Is it parole? I don't know. It might have been his parole meeting or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what this is. I forget. I forget that because he did the community service hours, and they were talking about that in this scene. So I think maybe it is his parole, but I don't know. Anyways, so he tells the man about his employment at CC Mobile, right? And also tells him about his aspirations to become a bigger and better lawyer that everyone will know once he gets his law license back and once the suspension is up. I really like the part where he says, everyone is going to know about it, right? Everyone's going to know that I'm a bigger and better lawyer. And so that was a very important little point of this conversation. And that is where the episode ends. But yeah, I really felt like that was an important part because that's exactly what Saul Goodman is, right? Everyone knows about him. He's on TV, he's on billboards and everything like that. And that's exactly what Jimmy wants. So by the time he gets his law license back, is he already going to be Saul Goodman? Right? I don't know. We'll have to see. But anyways, things are building up towards that for sure. And especially with that first scene in this episode that we see that little flash forward, flashback, type of scene there. I think they're building to that. Maybe even by the end of this season. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, that'll just about do it for the recap of this one. All right. So in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.6 out of 5. Again, really great episode. I did really enjoy it. A slower paced episode though. Probably the most action in this was probably when Jimmy got mugged. I mean, that was pretty much the, the peak of the action in this one. It wasn't very fast paced. There wasn't a lot of stuff going on in this episode, but a few meaningful things, right? A lot of stuff with Kim, Jimmy, getting in that kind of situation again where everything's going his way and then it fails yet again. So he's never able to kind of see things through. The stuff with building that underground lab with Mike and Gus, that was pretty good. So yeah. But anyways, a little bit of a slower paced episode, still very enjoyable, and still, very entertaining. I really did enjoy it. And, of course, that great scene at the beginning of the episode, right? Will we see more of those? Some people have speculated now that we're going to see one of those, in almost every episode going forward. I'm not sure about that. I think we might see another one maybe in the finale. But it was great to see that. It was really great to see, that scene in there. And you know what would be really awesome? I know that this isn't going to happen because Vince Gilligan confirmed this at Comic-Con that Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, Jesse and Walter are not in Season 4 Better Call Saul. He confirmed that. But what would be awesome, imagine in the finale episode, we get the scene where Saul is actually in that room with Walter and they're waiting on they're actually waiting on the man, the vacuum guy, coming with their fake ID and finding them a place to go. So that would be really awesome. Can you imagine that? Walter and Saul in that room, where we saw a little bit of glimpse of that scene in Breaking Bad, but we didn't see the whole thing play out. So that would be amazing. But I don't think that'll be happening this season. Maybe next season, maybe. So anyway, something to look forward to. But really great scene at the beginning. And no Nacho, right? As I guessed, I have to put that in there. I have to get that in there. No Nacho this episode, and I don't think we'll see any of him next episode, maybe like a scene or two. But I think Nacho's going to be kind of on a hiatus here. He's healing up from all those injuries, and hopefully he'll be back better than ever in the next couple episodes. So anyways, yeah, as I guess, no Nacho in this one. I do really love Michael Mando. I love Nacho, and it's going to be, a couple episodes yet, I think, until we see him kind of back to full health. So, and that's just kind of his character arc this season, so it is what it is. But we got Mike back. He's back in the episodes, which is great to see as well. So yeah. So anyways, that'll just about do it. And then favorite character for this one is Kim Wexler, played by Rhea Seehorn. I've been watching the show for 4 years almost. It has been 4 years, and I still don't really know how to pronounce her name. I think it is Rhea Seehorn. Probably not, though. But anyways, she's doing a great job as Kim. This season, she's kind of had a little bit of a confusing arc, and one that hasn't been as pivotal to the main plot as maybe in other seasons. She's kind of doing her own thing right now that Jimmy doesn't have his law license. They're not working together anymore. But she is doing a really great job, and they've kind of taken Kim on a little bit of like I said, a different arc this season. And I really enjoy it. I think it's going to be good. Where is it going to go with Mesa Verde? I wouldn't be surprised if she even dropped Mesa Verde by the end of this season. And she maybe even goes to just doing pro bonos now. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where she's going to go from here, but it's going to be interesting. And Rhea Seehorn, amazing job, right? Amazing job this season. And she's been, she basically has to act with one arm for the rest of this season, as she has that broken arm still from that car accident in season 3. So really great job here from Rhea Seehorn and the whole cast. The whole cast did an amazing job this episode. And yeah, so anyways, gonna be interesting to see Kim's journey the rest of the season and see what part she has to play in the rest of the story, so for sure. But anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for my review for Better Call Saul Season 4, Episode 5. Again, we're already halfway through Season 4. Pretty crazy stuff, I know. Going by fast, but anyways, 5 more episodes to go in this season. I will be here week to week. I'm trying to get these out Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but I did explain in my Let's Talk Television episodes I did a couple days ago. That's on the channel, by the way. I'm talking a little bit about Breaking Bad and Ozark, comparing the two, so go check that out if you're interested. But I did explain a little bit in that one. I've been trying to get this setup working, and ran into some difficulties with that, so that's why this one's late. Hopefully next week I'll be back Tuesday or Wednesday to do my review for the next episode. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. Thanks for watching the review. Thank you so much for your support on the channel. I do really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for Better Call Saul Season 4, Episode 6.
To shut out feeling lonely.